Assalamu alaikum. I would like to call Brother Ali Jabir to recite a few verses from the Holy Quran. Brother Ali.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. صدق الله العظيم.
صدق Allah al-Azim. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ali. Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful, all praise is to Allah, and may His peace and blessings be upon His messenger, his family, and his companions. Good morning, everyone. My name is Saeed Mashgari, currently board member and treasurer of the American Arab and Muslim Legal Leadership Council, AMLC. We are very delightful to have all of you join us here for these important legal seminars. It gives me the great pleasure to welcome our presenters and also to welcome our attendees, especially those ones that have come hundreds of miles away, like from Ohio, Chicago, and even as far as Florida. So thank you for coming out. First, I would like to make sure that everyone has one of these program outline. We're going to strictly follow these time guidelines, so inshallah that we can finish our program on time. Please know that refreshments will be available throughout the day, so feel free to get something to eat or something to drink when you need to. And also the restrooms is right outside that back door to your right. And at this point, I would like to thank our sponsors. In particular, we'd like to show our appreciation to our sponsor, Life for Relief and Development. And we're going to show you a brief video of that organization. Life does amazing things locally and, of course, internationally. That was a beautiful video. And now I would like to invite Live CEO. He brings many experiences. He is an entrepreneur, advocate, and a speaker. He has 15 years of experience in public affairs and advocacy in Washington, D.C., and Brussels, Belgium. Please help me welcome Brother Khalid Tarani.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. ما شاء الله تبارك الله جزاكم الله خير. Usually in these kind of settings, I would say it is a pleasure to be here. But today I'm going to say it is a necessity to be here. With a lineup of real life heroes. And I really mean that. People like Charlie and Christina and Catherine and Marwa and Osaf. I think those are the people who are on the forefront of defending really the principles based on which this country was built. When, unfortunately, we happen to be in this time and in this age where the Muslim community is the weakest link in the chain of civil rights and civil liberties, it is people like Charlie, Christina, Marwa, Osaf, and Catherine who come to the forefront, who step up to the plate, and who take on the banner of defending our community, or defending whichever community happened to be that weak link in the chain of civil rights and civil liberties. At one point it was African Americans. I feel sometimes it still is, but they have a little bit more leverage than the Muslim community does. At times it was Irish Americans, Italian Americans, Japanese Americans for sure. We are here because it is necessary to be here. Because the right-wing nuts are getting nuttier even than we expected. And they're going to an extreme, to more extremes than we thought they would go. And in terms of dividing our communities, it is, in their sick mind, it is the us and the them. And they're pretending to be defending the rights or defending the United States of America, when what they're doing, they're really dividing the United States of America. They're selling, their goods is fear and nothing but fear. Fear that is packaged as the Muslims and the Muslim community or the other, whoever that other is. And for us to be here, for you to be here this morning, on a Saturday morning, I think it is really a testament to the need that we have and your understanding of that need. It is unfortunate that those who are selling hate would utilize the law, which is a very effective tool to try to circumvent this community and try to kind of edge us off the public square. We've seen it in Europe, where in a country like Switzerland, they would ban the minarets of mosques. In a country like France, for God's sake, they are banning the BDS movement. And a Jewish lady who is a survivor of the Holocaust is tried because she exercised her right to boycott Israel. And now they're bringing that battle to the United States of America. They're trying in Maryland. Now they are actually right now, as we speak, actively pursuing a legislation in Ohio to fight the BDS movement, trying to edge the Muslim community and the charities out of the public square. We're not good enough as if to bank with the banks or to have a seat on the table. So this lineup of really superstars in law and order, if you will. You're probably not going to see them too much on television, but you'll see them in halls like this where people like our community and leaders in our community are gathered. So we at Life for Relief and Development, we don't see it only as a privilege to sponsor this kind of event, but also as a necessity for ourselves and for our community, for the mosques. I'm supposed to talk for 10 minutes about life, so I'm going to talk for 1 minute about Life for Relief and Development. We are an extension of your charitable giving. We are your tools to deliver your generosity and your kindness to those who are in need, whether they are in Flint, Michigan, where we distributed more than 200,000 bottles of water, or whether they are in Afghanistan or in Palestine, whether they are in Yemen, where we sent $4 million worth of medicine, badly needed medicine, or if it is in Syria, north or south, in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Pakistan, and in many, many places. We're in 40 countries trying to do the best that we can, and I just wanted to applaud my colleagues there at Life's booth, Brother Kareem and Brother Fawzi, there for coming up and setting up to tell you about Life. If you have any question, please direct it to them or to me, and we'll be glad to answer it. I welcome all of you to this workshop. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you do too. And I'll stop talking this time. Thank you very much. God bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Brother Khalid, and thank you for all your support. At this point, I would like to welcome someone who's going to be introducing our presenters, Sister Janine Yassin, please.
Thank you, Khaled, so much. That was a lovely speech. We would now like to begin with our first segment of this afternoon, Relationships with Federal Authorities. This workshop is presented by Charles Swift, Director of Council for Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America. It was named one of the top 100 legal minds in the nation by National Law Review. Retired Lieutenant Commander in the U.S. Navy, Judge Advocate, General's Corps. The workshop is also being presented by Catherine McDonald, Staff Attorney for the Constitution Law Center for Muslims in America. She has more than 10 years of high-value criminal defense. Her experience goes beyond criminal sentencing to the issues surrounding a conviction, such as professional licensing, immigration, and other factors.
So, I'm going to start with a story. There was a balloon race a few years back, and out in Washington State, all the guys get up, they start really early in the morning, and they get in their balloons, and they think it's going to be a beautiful day, but who knows with the weather. Suddenly a terrible storm comes up just as they're lifting off, and the balloons are tossed here, there, and yon, and the guys, two of the fellas get up in their balloon basket, they look out over the part after the storm's cleared, and they see a young woman down in the field. And they look down at her and they yell, "Where are we?" She yells, looks up at them and says, "Up in a balloon." One guy turns to the other one and says, "You know what? She's got to be a lawyer." The guy goes, "How you figure?" He goes, "Well, her answer is absolutely accurate. It's absolutely worthless." And she looks up at them and says, "Yes, I am a lawyer, and you all are clients." They go, "How do you figure?" She goes, "Well, I had absolutely nothing to do with the situation you got yourself into. I've given you perfectly good advice to the question that you asked. And from now on, whatever happens to you is going to be my fault." With that in mind, I'm going to try and do a little better than the balloon. What I want all of you, in talking to the Leadership Council, have relationships these days with the FBI. Many of you were in the country before 9/11. Many of you may have met the FBI on one or two occasions. Wow, the day after 9/11, you met them a lot more. To understand the dynamic, and this is a difficult question for every person who's in the leadership of the Muslim community in America today, is how to deal with the FBI. It's not a clear, easy answer. It's not the easy answer that maybe you would hear at the Center for Constitutional Rights. Yeah, you can do whatever you want, just say no. It's not that simple. But first, let's try and understand the FBI.
Okay, well, thank you, Charles Swift, for such a beneficial and valuable presentation. I'd like to welcome Catherine McDonald again, who is presenting the next workshop, Masjid and the Religious Constructions, where the discussion of land use and Incarceration Persons Act will take place.
Thank you very much. I've been an attorney for 22 years. I was a public defender for 15 years, and I started in August 2014 working with Charles. He and I were married. Through a generous grant from the Muslim Legal Fund of America, opened the Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America, and we have now, I think we're up to 12 attorneys, so we're doing great work and really enjoying what we're doing. But I'm here today to talk to you about the Religious Land Use and Incarcerated Persons Act, also known as RLUIPA. How many people have heard of this or are familiar with this? Few hands. This actually came into being in 2000, enacted September 22nd. It came out as a result of after the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, or RFRA, which you may have heard of. There's a lot of talk about, whether we can bake cakes for gay couples, and it violates sincerely held religious beliefs. That's comes out of the RFRA. What happened was it was determined that the RFRA back in 1993 only applied to the federal government. And so there was some backlash with municipalities, towns, and cities discriminating against various religious groups. And so President Clinton put RFRA in place in 2000. Congress found as a whole that religious institutions were treated worse than comparable secular institutions by zoning codes, zoning authorities, and they found that zoning authorities were placing excessive burdens on the abilities of congregations, religious organizations, and individuals to exercise their faith without sufficient justification in violation of the Constitution. So that's why RLUIPA was put in place.
And now a message from our sponsor. I'd like to call up Abdullah Al-Mu'min, a Deputy Executive Director from the Muslim Legal Fund of America.
Assalamu alaikum. How's everything going, brothers and sisters? Alhamdulillah. Are you guys enjoying this program so far? Absolutely. Now, if you are, then I'm going to need your help on something, which is we want to bring this message to your masjids, inshallah ta'ala. We want the Muslimin, we want the Muslims around Michigan to know, and in the other surrounding states that came here today, to know about these important issues and know about how to deal with them. So please do not leave without talking to me today, and please do not leave without taking my card and giving me your card or information. Because we want to bring this message to every single Muslim in America, letting them know that it is their right to practice their faith the way they see possible and fit, so that they can both be a good Muslim and inshallah as a good American. So please, again, we thank you for being here today. We thank you for supporting these causes that we're talking about today. And lastly, please, again, do not leave without taking my card and giving me your information. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, so up next, I'd like to welcome Marwa El-Biali to present the next workshop, Project Resource Attorney for Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America. She organizes educational programs and conferences, coordinating special products, handling individual cases and clients, and assisting with writing and research.
I just want to start off by saying that I hate Muslims. I hate Sharia law. I think it's from Satan. I think everybody here should go back to the desert where they came from, including you, sir. I don't know why you think you're American. And that's all protected by by the First Amendment, freedom of speech. So obviously this is very offensive. It's stuff that we don't like to hear, but it is protected. And I'm going to try to explain to you why. And also because we have had a recent phenomenon of protests going on in front of mosques. So I want to explain to you the boundaries and what they can do and what they can say and where they can say it.
Thank you, Marwa Al-Biali, for such a great presentation. Next, we'd like to welcome Awsaf Faruqi to present the next workshop discussing the challenges to 51c3 organizations. He is a board member of the Constitution Law Center for Muslims in America. He's also a partner of Faruqi and Hussein Law Office in Oak Brook Terrace, Illinois, where he represents the clients in family law matters as well as estate planning. Mr. Faruqi specializes in Islamic estate planning and Islamic family law.
Assalamu alaikum. I appreciate the invitation to come speak with you today about this particular topic. It's an important topic, and what I've done with my presentation is we're going to go through the black letter law first while I have all of your attention and I'm still new and you're awake. And we'll get through that, and then we'll get to the more interesting part about 501c3 organizations. Before I start, there's a couple things I did want to say. One was about the importance of an event like this. I've been working within the Muslim community for a long time. I've been in Chicago since 2005, and I've been basically doing nonprofit work since I got to Chicago. One of the things that I learned as a law student and as a lawyer in Chicago is one of the areas we lack as a community is legal sophistication. We are great doctors, engineers, especially anything in the sciences and technology. We understand that there are a few lawyers, but generally speaking, our community has not gained the legal sophistication of other communities. Case in point, it's still continuing now, but over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been this a scam that goes on. Someone calls your house, they say they're from the IRS, and they target you and they say, well, listen, you owe back tax coming to your house right now unless you give me a credit card and pay off this $3,000 in back taxes. Now, the interesting thing about this is not the scam. The interesting thing about this is that the individuals who conduct this scam, they specifically look for Muslim names in phone directories and phone books because this is a community that's susceptible. They're not only already afraid of law enforcement, they're afraid of police coming to them, but they also know that they have a higher chance of this person pulling out a credit card and paying these taxes, which may not mean much for how confident we are in doing our taxes. Regardless, they are targeting Muslims because they know there is this deficiency. And when I started my practice, one of the main things we did was estate planning, because Muslims, even though inheritance law is part of our deen, we don't write last will and testaments, even though it's literally a part of our tradition not to go more than 2 nights without a last will and testament. We did a study when I was with the Council of Islamic Organizations, and I think only about 60% of the Muslims we interviewed had done it. So that's a big gap. So these kinds of organization meetings and presentations are extremely important. And what's also extremely important is the work groups like the Muslim Legal Fund of America and the Constitutional the CLCMA, the work that they do. Because we have to understand, especially in this political environment, there is a battle going on right now. It's a very important battle that we're fighting. And that battle is not going to be fought with guns and bullets or anything like that. It's going to be fought over a piece of paper called the Constitution of the United States. And it's going to be fought by lawyers who go to court with that Constitution and protect us from the tyranny of the majority, from this massive population of Americans who have decided that it is acceptable to be racist, to be hateful towards Muslim communities, to pass laws against Muslims. So that's something that we have to stress. We have to invest our resources, our time, and our money into these sorts of organizations and this sort of work, because this is what's going to keep us safe. It's going to keep the future generations safe. And one more thing I wanted to say before I started. Charlie had mentioned about some of the work I do with Sharia-compliant wills, trusts, prenuptial contracts, things like that. one of the important things I do whenever I write an Islamic will or an Islamic prenuptial contract is we look at what the Islamic rules are, and we find a way to make them legally acceptable and religiously neutral. So if you actually read the last will and testament that I draft, it's very different than the average Islamic will you're going to get off the internet or from whatever attorney. You're going to get a last will and testament that only refers to Islam in the funeral section because we are basically buried before anyone looks at the will anyways. But everything else is going to be very neutral. And that's designed because we want to avoid any kind of future conflicts in law because we do recognize the political environment in which we live. So it's possible to incorporate Sharia into our lives, but we have to be very careful and deliberate and diligent in the manner in which we do so.
Okay, first before we start, if anyone is interested in receiving the PowerPoints, make sure that you've signed in and put in your contact information at the papers that are on the tables near the entrance. And now we are going to show a 2-minute video about the AMLC.
The American Arab and Muslim Leadership Council was founded in June 2015. Their mission is to empower, organize, unite, facilitate, support, create leadership, and serve as a voice for the Arab Muslim communities in Michigan and the United States. Since their founding, the AMLC has hosted various events, trainings, and workshops dedicated to instilling the necessary skills needed for self-empowerment and development. They've also established a youth caucus that engages the youth in local politics and community organizing.
I think youth development in this community is important because we as young people coming up, our very identities are at stake. We have a vested interest in the policies that are implemented because they directly affect us. Youth empowerment is important, youth leadership specifically because we are the future generations that will be in charge of making policies, so early involvement is really important.
I believe that youth involvement is vital to this community's success. Our community in Southeast Michigan is built on immigrants, and the youth, the first and second generations, can bridge the gap between the old and the new. I believe this organization can serve as that platform.
Okay, so now I'd like to call up the president of AMLC, Dr. Ahmed Saleh.
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm just, one verse comes to mind. إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. The Quran says that we always need to be optimistic. It's mandatory to be optimistic. No matter how bleak things seem, we always need to look forward and for what's going to happen the next 100 years. Having said that, we all realize that we need to be change agents and we need to be transformative leaders and Sayyidul Qawm Khadimuhum, but also to serve our community. If our community is hurting, how are we going to bring healing to that particular hurt? And they go through some horrible experiences, we should be there, especially the core group of about 8-9 people with a collective activism experience of about 300 years. If we cannot do that, who's going to do that? Our grandchildren and the 7th generation from now should have a structure, organizational structure in place that can really push them forward into the future. So we thank the speakers for the terrific job they've done this morning, and they're still going to do today, and it's just really been eye-opening. There's a lot of new conversations we need to start because of that. Also a few new debates. Now, as we've seen from the movie, we've started off as a for-profit, AMPAC, and there's also been significant gains within that for-profit sector of the organization. Last November, we've launched the AMLC, and since then we've decided that we're going to have those substantial educational programs to really create that civic engagement for our community. The African community in the 1960s may have had a few hundred people in political elected offices. Today they have almost 11,000. And so if something happens in Ferguson, it's easy for them to replace all the police leadership that was responsible for Ferguson or Baltimore, or whatever the case may be. And so with that in mind, we need to place 30 years, 40 years from now, at least another 1,100,000 Muslims and Arabs in very strategic places. Now there's a lot of civic crimes, and for those civic crimes we need civic engagement. We are pro-police, we are pro-intelligence agents, but we are against the abuse within these agencies. And you cannot be more American than to trying to get the society as functional and organic and healthy as possible. So being American, we want to have a very healthy democracy and a healthy patriotism. There are 3 patriots, 2 bad and 1 good. The bad patriots are loveless critics and uncritical lovers, and the good patriot is those people who have a lover's quarrel with their nation or with their society. So we envision, we empower, we organize. Our rivals fear us when we are very organized, and so we need to be organized at all time. For several months we debated whether we should have the word Arab included in our organizations, and we decided to stick with that. Because it's carrying a different baggage, and we are putting our heads out there, we are exposing ourselves, we are prepared to take that risk. Sometimes leadership takes courage. Leaders do and say what others don't dare do and say, and they do and say that repeatedly. And so we are taking that courage to put Arab into the word American, Arab and Muslim leadership, or whatever the council that we had. So this was a debate that has been continuing for almost more than a year. We have some of our members who are always action driven, and so we want to have good planning and thinking, but we also want to constantly add this with action. Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, said, knowledge without action is vanity, action without knowledge is insanity. And so we don't want to be insane, or we don't want to be vain, so we want to have that. But bringing that anger, that righteous indignation, and that passion into whatever we do, anyone who has that passion, and we know that there are people in every state. You are part of our organization. We want you to join our organization. This morning, the first people to arrive was a person from Florida. So may Allah bless people from Florida. Then we had the second group that arrived, came driving in from Chicago for 6 hours. And then we have people that drove in from Toledo, Ohio. But this organization, we envision to have it in each and every state, especially those states where there are even fewer Muslims, like Alaska or some of those other states, Montana. We want to involve the youth, provided we make sure that they have the necessary adab, the respect and the confidence, not the false confidence. Many of our millennials have false confidence, so we want them to have a healthy confidence, but also adapt as we buy into this ethic of inclusive excellence. Now, they say when you want something done, give it to a very busy person. A number of these projects could take off so quickly because we had one gentleman who could open one store after another. He is so super busy, his brain is super busy. He could easily come up with 100 ideas within no time. We had people like Brother Sufyan, Abdullah Sheikh. We have Brother Muthanna, Brother Hassan, Brother Nabil and Adnan are almost like twins. You cannot separate them. Brother Saeed. If it had not been for these super busy people, within a few months, we acquired a newspaper that is the largest newspaper in the country. Been in existence for 25 years, Al Mizan. We are going to spruce it up quite a bit. We're also going to put an English component to that. That could only take place with people that are so super. It's almost like trying to get the car out of a driveway if the snow is about 6 feet high. It's different to having a car already on the freeway. So these people are these super busy people. So pray for this, inshallah. This is going to become a great voice for the organization. The last few points we have, our vision is also there's a great need for orphanage facilities for the homeless, facilities, and we want to roll this out, and we are ambitious enough to have it before Ramadan, to have a $1 million plus $1 million plus building that is going to house these orphans in a very lovely way. So orphans, the homeless, and many other people, women that are battered, etc. But also creating zakah. You can, for instance, get zakah on the salary, monthly salary. Malaysia has introduced that successfully and increased the zakah fourfold. Sudan has it mandatory. If we do that voluntary, you can have zakah for every non-profit organization. So that's another idea we have. So the Mizan is a newspaper, the orphanage and other social welfare buildings that we plan. Also, we are going to heavily concentrate on leadership. Our CEO Khalid Turani's brother Ibrahim is flying in from Dubai to have some training. And I'm teaching at the University of Detroit Mercy, a Catholic university. I'm also with Brother Abdullah putting together a leadership program that is maybe very 40, 100 hours so that it can be much more effective. And so my task now for the next 2 minutes is to ask you to volunteer, whichever masjid you are, whichever center you are, whichever organization you are. We would like each and every one of you to be part of this organization. We got in here to say that we are going to do the spade work. We have done considerable spade work. We need all of you, all across the country. We have some of these young ladies who are going to take some names, but we want every organization to sacrifice 1 or 2 persons to help us with that. Could we have some show of hands? And inshallah, this is really your organization. That's what we want. We've always had this in mind. Even from the time we've launched this organization, we've never said it's about us. It's about our grandchildren. It's about our 7 generations from now. So every row we could just stand up and say which organization you are from, and then would you be prepared to sacrifice 1 person from your organization to be part of this noble project? Brothers? Inshallah. The first row. Masjid Taqwa, inshallah. Together now. Sufyan, ICD. Okay, and Arbor, the same, mashallah. Iona, 3 people. Masjid Sa'ad from Toledo. Chicago Islamic Foundation. Said Hassan is with us already. Said Nabil, they have 3 masajid and also about 10 other Arab masajid that are under them with a group. All together now. The row behind there. Masjid Al-Huda in Detroit. That's a sheikh from the ICD and Said Khalid Tarani was sponsored. Right at the back we have, if you can just say your name again from the, now, Tafadhal. Said Muthanna is there and before the row before that. MashaAllah, Grand Blanc Islamic Center. We also have Imam Adib want to be part of that, so shukran for Masjid Tawheed and ICD, this next row. American Muslim Society, inshallah. Islamic Center of Detroit and this group here. Goodcast.net. There's a new media group that came out, and remember it's all about alliances. We want to partner with everyone and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. This young man who spoke so passionately earlier on, which center are you from?
Medina Community Center, also in Freedom.
Oh, also, yeah, both of you, right? And life, of course, and both the same. Life is hope, right? Now, Sheikh Majdi is there from the ICD and As-Salam, sorry, and then we have Mansoor right to the back. So please do not leave. We want. Oh, sorry, Florida people. I'm so sorry. we mentioned you first, but Jazakallah. And I don't know if I have the liberty to do this, but all the people on the panel, you are part of us. You know, you're very much part of our group. That's all I have for now. So just to briefly recap the newspaper we have the orphanage, big project that we have, the leadership training, and also we want you to help us recruit in each and every state and pray inshallah within the next 5 years we will really take our community forward. The Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, you must do your salah as if this will be your very last prayer, but you must plan as if you're going to live for 100 years. So may Allah make us of those people who have their 100-year plan.
Okay, so now the final presentation for this afternoon will be presented by Christina Jump, and we'll be discussing employment discrimination. Christina is a staff attorney for the Constitution Law Center for Muslims in America. She's focused her career in civil law and primary focus on labor and employment law. She was the past president of the Dallas Women's Lawyers Association and was named a Texas super lawyer for 2 years in a row.
Thank you very much, and I do promise to keep us on time as much as I can. In order to do that, I'm going to apologize in advance that I want to make sure that I touch on at least a little bit of a lot of things, and then we can cover some follow-up questions in whatever format would work best, which means that I am probably not going to stop that much for questions as we go. But that will be just to make sure that I can get through the material a little bit more and get you at least round one on the knowledge on a lot of different things. So I want to talk to you about employment law considerations. Now I know you've heard a lot so far today. Before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of this, you know, we have Charlie and we have Kathy who have very extensive criminal knowledge and what to do in an immigration context and what to do when confronting municipalities and other government agencies. And I have spent 20 years doing absolutely none of that. So I'm going to come at you from a totally different point of view. My background and my emphasis is more on the business side than the civil side. And I have spent a lot of times working on behalf of companies and then some on behalf of individuals as well, and mostly focused on what we're going to cover today, which is more the anti-discrimination statutes and basically setting up a business and the work the proper way within the scope of how you might apply it. So we're going to try and stay within that framework, and hopefully I'll cover at least a little bit of what you want to know on that, and we certainly can follow up later as well.
I only had 8 questions to ask, but I guess that's too bad. We can't ask those questions. But Mr. Farouqi will be available, I guess, for some time. The rest of the presenters will be leaving. Quickly, I just want to say thank you all for joining us here today. Of course, I want to thank our honored presenters and our board committee and volunteers who contributed to this educational seminar. We also want to thank our sponsors. We could have not done it without them. Life for Relief and Development, Muslim Legal Fund, CLCMA. Again, thank you all for coming.